In New York City, dog ownership jumped more than 40% in 2020. As the city heads toward 2026, that single shift is quietly rewriting where people live, how buildings are designed, and who wins in a commercial market that's gaining speed and showing cracks. Start on the skyline. Vacancies are tightening. Sublease space is shrinking. Rents are inching up. Return to office levels are outperforming every other major USP. City. Big tenants have renewed their faith with long-term paperwork. Bloomberg, Jane Street, Guggenheim, Amazon, signaling that New York remains the place where scale, capital, and a culture of showing up still matter. New trophy towers rise. Billion-dollar sales close. Hotels are busy. Office-to-residential conversions accelerate, reshaping footprints from downtown to the west side. The city is moving again, but pace yourself. That momentum is fragile. Manhattan is dotted with stalled development sites where financing gaps or missing anchor tenants have frozen progress. The skyline's story isn't linear, it's spiky. Downtown's 2 World Trade Center is still unfinished. Iconic properties sit in limbo, from the former Roosevelt Hotel to the Chrysler Building, with pieces of the South Street Seaport suspended between past and future. Retail offers the sharpest contradiction. Despite upbeat talk, vast stretches of what should be bulletproof storefronts, Madison Avenue, Fifth Avenue, neighborhood corridors, stay empty. There's a visible disconnect between numbers on paper and street-level reality. Inside the residential world, a different metric has seized the steering wheel: pets. New York City is home to roughly 1.1 million companion animals. More than half of New Yorkers now spend more on their dog's health and grooming than on their own, a survey in 2022 found. For a growing share of households, empty nesters and renters without kids especially, decisions about leases and amenities now flow through a leash. The traditional apartment checklist, proximity to a major subway hub, a buzzy bar scene, has been sidelined by something softer and fiercer. Will the building take care of my dog? Signals suggest developers got the message fast. One Williamsburg Wharf in Brooklyn threw a Santa Paws party, complete with a festive photo booth and a paw print ornament station. At One Wall Street in the financial district, a canine club offers puppy reiki and social events with custom-painted pet portraits. Along the Upper West Side skyline, Waterline Square includes a private pup club designed by a sought-after trainer. On Broadway, the 96-plus Broadway condominium carved out an elegant, self-serve pet spa to match its address. On Manhattan's West Side, at 547 W7, 47th St., residents head to an 8th-floor dog run multiple times a day, skyline views for owners, turf, and routine for the dogs. And beyond the luxury tier, the Heartbeat in Stuyvesant Heights baked pet amenities into a building where 30% of units are rent stabilized, proving the animal-first design trend isn't limited by price point. Zoom in for a minute. Picture a 12-year-old poodle mix named Princess. She moved with her owners from Connecticut to Long Island City's Jackson Park area, landing in a lease takeover above Queensboro Plaza. It lasted 2 months. The 7 train roared past at ear level. Trucks and buses stacked up at the intersection. Princess, at 12 and used to grass, found concrete and chaos instead. The family moved again, this time to a 2-bedroom penthouse at Malt Drive on the LIC waterfront. $20 floors up, multi-exposure views and quiet air replaced the ground-level frenzy. The choice wasn't about a shorter commute or a hotter cafe. It was about stress and sound, grass under paws, and an older dog's baseline comfort. Even an ACL tear didn't derail the plan. Princess rode in a stroller until she recovered. That's not a quirky one-off, it's a distilled snapshot of how a new kind of amenity calculus is governing the city's residential chessboard. Data points that once lived on the edges of real estate marketing now sit at the center. New York City's pet count near 1.1 million means a long line of elevators and hallways will be judged by how they smell, how they're maintained, and how easy they make it to bathe a shedding dog. More than half of residents prioritizing dog health and grooming over their own, measured in 2275, tells you why developers are renting out space inside buildings to on-premises pet care and doggy daycares with agility equipment. It explains the rising crop of concierge desks that handle overnight boarding and blueberry puppy facials for a fee. In 2020, when dog ownership spiked more than 40% among New Yorkers, a structural demand shock entered the market. The building features you see now are a delayed, targeted response. The implications are easy to miss because they run through behavior rather than price tags. Take that 8th floor dog run at 547W. 47th St. It's not a big unit premium. It's an on-site routine that fits owners who work demanding hours and can't safely trek to a park at dawn or midnight. Take the self-serve pet spa at 96 Plus Broadway. That isn't just marble. It's plumbing and storage built to save zoning headaches, and it creates a line item in the monthly budget for grooming. The Waterline Square Club draws a specific kind of resident who will use a trainer-designed program weekly, not couple times a year. One Williamsburg Wharf's Santa Paws gathering creates living room diplomacy for neighbors who might otherwise never meet. These aren't fluff. They're soft infrastructure for a social system that starts with the animal. That shift shows up beyond the luxury corridor, too. In Stuyvesant Heights, the Heartbee's green-tiled pet spa serves a building where 30% of apartments are rent-stabilized. That number matters. It signals that pet-friendly design has migrated out of high-end bragging rights into baseline expectations at mixed-income buildings. It lowers the friction of bathing at home without tearing up a small shower or clogging pipes. It quiets hallway disagreements over wet floors. And it changes how property managers think about staffing and maintenance scheduling, because the spa runs bring predictable, repeatable traffic and add wear in specific windows. As the residential amenity map reshapes, the broader commercial landscape pushes and pulls on the same streets. Heading into 2026, the city's office market looks more confident than its peers. Return to office levels in New York are outpacing every other major U.S. The city. That puts a floor under neighborhood foot traffic Monday through Friday, which in turn supports the dog daycares, grooming outposts, and pet treat boutiques that have become standard under many residential towers. Big tenants renewing or expanding, names like Bloomberg, Jane Street, Guggenheim, Amazon, anchor that daytime economy. New towers that grab the skyline also pull along ground floor retail that feeds it. But the ground still shifts underfoot. Manhattan carries a handful of frozen construction sites where the pro forma depends on an anchor tenant that hasn't arrived. Downtown's 2 World Trade Center remains unfinished, a reminder that even marquee addresses can stall if the capital stack and leasing pace don't click. The former Roosevelt Hotel, the Chrysler Building, parts of the South Street Seaport, icons that should carry their own gravity, stay in a waiting pattern. On the retail side, the picture is stark. On Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, blocks that once served as a barometer for luxury demand now feature long stretches of closed doors. Despite rosy availability metrics on paper, the street-level read remains a blunter instrument, open or empty. All of that, hotels humming, billion-dollar trades, office-to-residential projects starting to move, intersects with how New Yorkers choose to live with animals in a dense city. In one building on the Upper West Side, a rooftop patio doubles as a sunlit dog lounge. At One Wall Street's Canine Club, even the wellness programming flows through a pet lens. Signals suggest that for developers chasing stable lease-ups and low turnover, the cost of building for animals pencils out in fewer vacancy days and more predictable renewals. It's also a hedge against uncertainty. When a tenant weighs staying or leaving, a ground-floor dog wash or an 8th floor run they use twice a day becomes a daily reminder of value, not a line in a brochure. The pet pivot isn't just for people at the top of the market. In a Hell's Kitchen condo at 547W, 47th St., a resident who splits time with his 11-year-old beagle and bulldog mix spends multiple daily windows at that 8th floor run. At 96 Plus Broadway, an Australian Shepherd, 4.5 years old, a working breed with energy to burn, gets monthly baths in a basement spa designed for that purpose. In Brooklyn, a 6.5-year-old Korean village dog uses the Heartbee's pet washing station, a shift that eased fears of baths in a cramped tub and introduced her to neighbors who now say her name in the hallway. Those age numbers read like personal trivia. They're also proxies for how varied the user base is. Seniors who need quiet, high-energy dogs that need daily miles, then a wash. Rescue animals that need gentle routines to gain confidence. The new apartment search logic follows the dogs, A family that once picked a unit above Queensboro Plaza for convenience lasted 2 months before shifting to Malt Drive for calm. A buyer at 547W, 47th St., called the 8th floor run a day-making feature. On the Upper West Side, proximity to Central Park and Riverside Park locked in the decision to move from Brooklyn to 96 Plus Broadway in June because a high-energy dog needed those specific green corridors. Developers have taken note. They thread grassy patches onto rooftops, add hose bibs and drains to rooms that weren't supposed to have either, and carve concierge desks into lobbies that double as pet staging areas. The details read small. Future leasing reads bigger. If you're looking for sharp cause and effect, the market won't cooperate. That's the tell of this era. Nuanced drivers spreading across sectors. Return to office levels that outperform other cities plug into weekday demand for grooming and walking, but they don't fill empty Fifth Avenue storefronts on their own. Billion-dollar trades headline success, but they don't move a stalled tower without anchors. And a city with 1.1 million pets has to solve for conflict, noise, mess, fear inside shared walls, which is why the buildings that invest in pet infrastructure tend to advertise harmony, not just amenities. There's also trust. In New York, opening a real estate brokerage isn't casual work. It requires a budget, responsibility, and standards. Contracts are detailed. They protect both sides. When damage occurs, companies deal with it quickly. That kind of professional scaffolding doesn't sound like a leasing amenity, but it becomes one quietly. It lets tenants believe that the promises on the pet brochure will hold up after move-in. Elsewhere, the dynamics are very different. In Tirana, for instance, some agencies take 40 to 60% simply for access to a database and an office. That's a different rulebook. The only overlap both places share is the easy one prices have risen. Everything else, on the day-to-day friction of renting, selling, and building a brand that lives with a building, is defined by how the system handles risk and responsibility. 6 neighborhoods, 6 decisions, 1 pattern. LIC's Jackson Park versus the waterfront at Malt Drive. Central Park and Riverside Park folding into daily dog routes from 96 Plus Broadway. Hell's Kitchen choosing a condo at 547W. 47th Sound 6. In part for an 8th floor run. The financial district co-signing dog wellness inside a landmark tower at 1 Wall Street. Williamsburg turning a building into a holiday stage at Santa Paws. Stuyvesant Heights integrating a pet spa into a property where 30% of apartments are rent stabilized. The numeric spread there, floor numbers, ages, percentages, hints at the breadth of this pivot. This isn't a niche. It's a citywide floor plan rewrite. On the office side, the game is subtler. A tighter vacancy rate and shrinking sublease inventory tell you the top of the market is working. Yet the cranes on hold and the corridors of darkness on Madison and 5th tell you the mid-market and street-level retail are not. Political and environmental constraints press into the mix. Waterfront policies stir debate. Development costs run higher in New York than in most cities. Those are constraints, not catastrophes. They explain why the margin for error here is thinner and the setbacks more visible. A stalled corner in Midtown feels like a broadcast. A stalled corner in a smaller city can disguise itself for longer, all of which pushes investors and developers toward proven demand. In 2020, the 40+% spike in dog ownership introduced a durable habit. In 2025, more than half of New Yorkers spending more on dog care than their own hinted at a stable appetite for services that fit into daily life rather than once-a-year splurges. Pair that with the city's return-to-office pace outpacing peers, and you get a composite portrait that favors buildings with sticky routines. Morning walks to an 8th floor run, lunchtime daycare behind the lobby, evening baths in a self-serve spa, and a concierge who knows which pet has an ACL recovery plan. The retail paradox hangs over it all. Madison Avenue and 5th Avenue should be unmissable routes for pet-forward businesses and high-end brands, yet block after block tells you vacancy still bites. A disconnect lingers between what availability metrics say and what anyone can see by walking. Signals suggest the problem isn't demand alone, it's the cocktail of rent expectations, build-out costs, and a new form of caution after years of disruption. Office-to-residential conversions promise more bodies in certain districts, but they also require time, approvals, and patience. While those gears turn, the sidewalks show the lag. So, who gains? Residents whose lives revolve around animals gain the most. A 12-year-old poodle elevated to a 25th floor perch in Long Island City becomes the story you tell your friends about finally getting it right. An 11-year-old Beagle Bulldog mix that uses an 8th floor run multiple times daily in Hell's Kitchen shows how routine can cement place. A 4.5-year-old Australian Shepherd living near both Central Park and Riverside Park shows why the Upper West Side remains a magnet. A 6.5-year-old rescue dog learning to love baths in a green-tiled room in Stuyvesant Heights shows how basic infrastructure can lower stress for everyone in the hallway. Developers who prioritize animal-first design gain something less obvious: predictability. In a market with paper-thin margins for error, anything that reduces vacancy churn has value. A pet spa that keeps shedding out of drains. A dog run that bears the brunt of wear away from elevator banks. A concierge who schedules daycare pickups at off-peak hours. Each of those small fixes adds up. They make the building work. They keep the building livable. They turn amenities from marketing lines into friction reducers. The upside is not confined to luxury buildings. The Heartbeat's 30% rent-stabilized composition paired with a full pet spa underlines that. Amenities are becoming a baseline expectation across price bands, and residents bring their own budgets to match. That aligns with the 2025 snapshot showing more than half of New Yorkers prioritizing dog health and grooming spend over their own. It also lines up with a city where 1.1 million pets have to fit into elevators, stairwells, and lobbies every day. Tension remains. The same New York that outperforms peers on return to office is the one where two World Trade Centers stays unfinished. The city that closes billion-dollar deals still leaves iconic blocks of Madison and Fifth with empty stretches. The place that taught the country how to build mixed-use density is wrestling with political and environmental constraints that slow new ideas. Under that pressure, every new development choice carries weight. The difference between a building with an 8th floor run and one without isn't just a nod to pets, it's a proxy for whether the building plans for how people actually live now. The broader commercial environment is heading into 2026 with strength that depends on execution. That's the theme that ties everything together. High-profile renewals and expansions suggest long-term confidence, from Bloomberg's footprint to Jane Street's, from Guggenheim to Amazon. Strong hotel performance hints at travel patterns that keep feeding Midtown and downtown. Accelerated office-to-residential conversions show creativity in the pipeline. But the thin margin for error shows up on every stalled site and every shuttered block of Madison Avenue. It tempers the optimism and sharpens the focus. For residents, the causal chain reads like a checklist. In 2020, dog ownership surged more than 40% in New York City. That added hundreds of thousands of animals into daily housing and commuting routines. In 2025, more than half of the city's residents spent more on their dog's health and grooming than their own, embedding that priority into the monthly budget. Developers layered in pet-centric features across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. 8th floor runs, rooftop turf, green-tiled spas, concierge services, daycare in the building. By 26, this set of features is less a trend than an operating assumption. It answers who moves in, who stays, and who leaves after 2 months above a busy train line. In a city this dense, it also answers where conflict gets smoothed. A barking dog in a hallway can become a building's reputation. A well-placed run can become a pressure valve. A concierge desk that knows which dogs don't like toddlers can stop problems before they happen. For every resident who picks a penthouse on the 25th floor for quiet, another picks a second-floor unit for fewer elevator rides. The architecture follows the behavior. There's a last piece worth naming: the social fabric. When one Williamsburg wharf hosts a Santa Paws party with a photo booth and a paw print ornament station, it's not just cute. It's a way to build ties in a building where neighbors might otherwise cross paths silently. When One Wall Street offers puppy reiki and custom-painted pet portraits, it's a way to make the building feel more like a village than a stack of private boxes. That matters in a market where street-level retail is still catching up. If Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue take time to fill their empty stretches, a building's internal programming cushions the experience for residents who would otherwise lean on neighborhood storefronts for their community time. So what comes next? Base case, through 2026, New York continues to outpace peer cities on return to office, keeping weekday energy high in core districts. Residential developers keep baking pet-first design into both luxury towers and mixed-income properties, and leasing campaigns lean on concrete features, eighth-floor runs, self-serve spas, rooftop turf, more than abstract lifestyle language. Billion-dollar trades keep capital engaged, and office-to-residential conversions keep inching forward where the math works. Expect pricing to reflect a premium for buildings that remove daily friction for the city's 1.1 million pets and their owners. Two watch items stand out. First, stalled projects. Track the pace at which sites with financing gaps or missing anchors reanimate, especially downtown at Two World Trade Center and around landmarks like the former Roosevelt Hotel and parts of the South Street Seaport. Each restart would signal improved risk appetite. Each delay would confirm the thin margin for error. Second, street-level retail on Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue. Watch whether long stretches of empty storefronts start to fill as return-to-office holds and conversions add residents nearby. A visible uptick would help stitch the macro momentum to neighborhood life. Continued emptiness would leave a hole under otherwise sturdy numbers. In a city that can compress a life's worth of detail into a single block, a handful of numbers map the moment. More than 40% growth in dog ownership in 2020. Roughly 1.1 million pets in New York City. More than half of residents spending more on dog care than their own health and grooming as of 2025. An 8th-floor dog run that pulls multiple daily visits in Hell's Kitchen. A 25th-floor perch that quiets a 12-year-old poodle in Long Island City. The personal rent-stabilized units sharing a green-tiled pet spa in Stuyvesant Heights. 2 World Trade Center waiting for its next chapter. Billion-dollar trades that write new ones. Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue asking the oldest question in New York real estate, what fills the space between the numbers and the street. If you want more clear, grounded reads on how small choices and hard numbers are reshaping New York's built life, make sure you're here when the next chapter lands.